Hi, and welcome to the Bruce Channel. I'm Bruce, and it's Memorial Day weekend, the unofficial start of... Yes, 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 hurry, 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 step right up and inhale your first breaths of the summer holiday season. Isn't that a great song? And, so risque. You hold her hand and she hold yours, and that's a very good sign that she's your Tootsie Wootsie. In the good old risque, it's naughty even, your Tootsie Wootsie. Well, hope I can get this by the censors. All right, so it is the unofficial start to summer for most of you. Here in the East, we're looking to an early start to hurricane season. Likely it's Bonnie, pointing here starting Sunday. Bad news for the coastal tourist towns from Georgia all the way up to wherever. New Jersey maybe, but Bonnie with a B? So what happened to the A storm? I had to look it up. I had forgotten. Okay, so they tell us we're still on track to have 2016 be the warmest year on record. 2015 has the old record just last year. But I'd forgotten that we had our first named storm, Alex, formed way back January 13th. I had completely forgotten about Alex, so that's why we're getting Bonnie. So happy grilling, America! Here, we're going to be watching the Weather Channel. So, in the news this week, Airbus has announced that they've picked up signals in the Mediterranean from the emergency locator transmitter from EgyptAir 804. This locator is designed, you can turn it on manual, it will automatically turn on if there's an impact, and it's a big deal. Because even with all the search ships there, they were estimating that the area, the calculated area from what they had on radar, was roughly the size of Connecticut. That's a lot of real estate. Now they can narrow it down to a much smaller area and hopefully find the pings that are coming from the black boxes. And it's well over a week. It's a week and a half. We still don't know what happened. We don't know why it went down. And there is still no sign that it was terrorism. It might have been, or not. No one knows. And I repeat, no one knows, which is why last week I lambasted Donald Trump for using the tragedy of a downed jetliner as a vehicle to self-promote. When he does his bragging about a building or building a golf course or how many times he's gotten laid, it's an extremely poor taste. But when he uses tragic things like this, the deaths of 66 people the way he did, he reveals just how revolting one human being can become. But then the news came earlier this week. It became official. Donald Trump, who ever since Ted Cruz and John Kasich ended their campaigns, has been the presumptive nominee. This week he actually got the number of delegates he needed, 1237, and so it's official. Or at least as official as it can be until they, officially vote. But here's the thing. He talks out of both sides of his mouth. He takes both sides of an issue. He never explains anything. He just says it's going to be great, trust me. And he insults everybody. And yet, I found this online this week. So to quickly set this up, I don't know if you know, but Keith Olbermann has worked many networks. He's been a sportscaster, a sports show host, a political commentator. He's won several awards. He's a baseball card authority. He grew up in New York, and he's a huge Yankees fan. And he's smart. He started Cornell when he was 16 years old. He still lives in New York. He lives in one of Trump's buildings. He was a guest last fall on Bill Maher's show. And they got talking a bit about Donald Trump. And then Bill asked Keith, "You miss being around politics?" Watch what they said next.
And so I feel like I'm involved with politics because this guy is screwing with my property values. So I'm in it whether I
Do
like
you
it
ever
or
see
not.
him in the building?
I do, and this is the scariest
You
part
do?
of this. I have seen him, I have talked to him, and obviously he'd be more interested in whether or not I'm happy with the experience of the average guy living there because I have something of a public persona.
Right.
But every conversation I ever had with him there, or when we worked together at NBC, simultaneously at NBC, was polite,
Yes.
calm.
I agree.
Was about you, not him.
I agree.
Was rational and solicitous. And all I keep thinking is, which is the real one? This crazy guy on TV who sounds like, as somebody said,
No,
an internet comments section is running for president.
Right.
For the longest time, I thought, well, which one is it? And then I thought, it doesn't matter. He's one of these things is a character. That scares me a lot.
I've had the same experience.
Yep.
When you meet
It's
him in person,
unbelievable.
right? He knows how to do that.
He's just, it's all about your needs.
Right.
And obviously, Bill Maher had met Donald Trump too. Easy to infer that. He was saying the same thing. So yeah, which one is the character? Which is the made-up guy? The nice, polite one? Is that the character? Is that the fake? Or is he really nice and the bombastic jerk the fake? Which one is real? Honestly, sometimes I just want to wake up, find it was all a dream, and kiss Suzanne Plachette good morning. Okay, so I heard, or did I read, earlier this week, yeah, Trump has unfavorables, and yes, the pundits say that if he faces Hillary, either of them would have the highest unfavorables of all time, and combined it's beyond imagination. Now, for him, again, if for nothing other than the constant insults that he throws out, I think it's understandable. If you insult enough people, then yeah, sooner or later, the people you just insulted join the people you had insulted, and so it builds. But really, what makes her so unfavorable, really? I mean, you don't have to like her politics, but she's got a hell of a resume. 10 years as Arkansas First Lady, 8 years as U.S. First Lady, 8 years as a senator, 4 years as Secretary of State. That's a credible resume. It's not like she was a game show host or running for president after being president of the PTA for a year, but she has been in the public for a long time, 25 years on the national stage, so maybe it's just not possible for anyone to think of her as fresh, and maybe that was also the difficulty for Jeb Bush, but here's the observation that was made earlier in the week. All that time in the public eye. And does anyone know what she does for fun? You know, Bill golfs. George W. golfs. George H.W. golfs. He goes boating off his Kenny Bunkport in the ocean there. Barack Obama plays golf and hoops, and Ronald Reagan rode horses. All these years, front and center, and we still don't know what she does for fun. We don't really know her, do we? Also from this past week, Monsanto rejected Bayer's buyout offer. They said it was too low, $62 billion, too low. But they said they were open to further talks. Bayer said that was encouraging. Personally, Monsanto seeds and Roundup and getting bought out by Bayer, the whole thing, is giving me a headache.
Hey, let me tell you about my book, Shrink. For most of my adult life, I weighed a little over 100 pounds. Not much more than in this picture taken when I was about 17 and considering becoming a jockey. But as is often true, once I crossed into my 40s, extra weight came and it stayed. For years I tried to lose, instead gained, and ended up 153 pounds. And I'm embarrassed to show you this video. Then I learned that it isn't about calories and exercise, but instead it's about what you eat. You might say, sure, ice cream makes you fat. But there were surprises, things like orange juice not being such a wise choice if you're trying to lose weight. So I just made some basic changes to what I ate, not how much, and the weight just fell off. Now, nearly 3 years later, it is still off. And don't misunderstand, I'm eating foods I like, not bamboo shoots. Friends ask me how I did it so often, I put it in a book. It's available as an ebook for all platforms, and the print edition is available at barnesandnoble.com and amazon.com. Hey, you can shrink too.
So welcome back. As always, I'd remind you, you can write us at thebrucechannel@yahoo.com, and you can watch all of our previous episodes at our Facebook page or at tinyurl.com/brucechannel, all of our previous shows. So, as mentioned, it's Memorial Day weekend, and this year, Memorial Day is falling, as it used to, on the date of May 30th. Once upon a time, we remembered on May 30th those who gave the last full measure of devotion. We remembered it with a certain solemnity. There were dates commemorating other things. We had Veterans Day on November 11th. Washington's birthday was February 22nd. Lincoln's was the 12th, but Washington's was the holiday. But then in 1968, Congress, I guess they thought we'd vote for them, we'd like them more. They gave us 3-day weekends. So Columbus Day, no, not Columbus Day, President's Day, Veterans Day, and Memorial Day became Monday holidays. And then they did that with Columbus Day. So now we have pool parties. We conflate remembering our fallen with remembering all who wore a uniform. There's certainly nothing wrong with remembering all veterans, but there's a date for that, Veterans Day. We blended Washington Lincoln's Day to give them a day to have a sale. So, oh boy, President's Day sale. And I have no idea why we have Columbus Day, or why he deserves a day. He came here, he found people living here, and because of him, the people who were already living here were nearly wiped out by disease, and those who weren't were dragged or chased to places they didn't want to be or killed. Yeah, Columbus Day. Whoopee. Anyway, Memorial Day has a really strange history. There's 5, 6, 7, 8 places with historically legitimate claims of having the first one. Diverse places, disparate places: Savannah, Georgia; Columbus, Georgia; Columbus, Mississippi; Charleston, South Carolina; Decatur, Illinois; Carbondale, Illinois; Bowlesburg, Pennsylvania. In 1966, President Johnson signed a proclamation. Congress had passed a concurrent resolution officially recognizing Waterloo, New York, as having originated Memorial Day 100 years earlier. And here in the South, it was stranger still, because it began in the North as Decoration Day. So in the South, the old Confederate states, they didn't want to have anything to do with the Yankee tradition, so they had Confederate Memorial Day. That was on May 10th. And that ended by the time I'd moved here. That's some 25 years ago. But people still spoke of it. And even 20 years or so ago, I remember being shocked. It was Memorial Day, and the kids went to school. I thought it's a holiday, but school was in session. Personally, I do think having removed it from a day of observance to a 3-day weekend cheapens it, and the veterans of foreign wars agree. In 2002, they made a statement, quote, "Changing the date merely to create 3-day weekends has undermined the very meaning of the day. No doubt this has contributed to the general public's nonchalant observance of Memorial Day," end of quote. All right, so it's been several weeks. You may recall I told you of an unusual, if not unique, experience. I'd been feeding an outdoor cat. We become buds. A friend suggested putting the bowl with the food in it in vinegar so as to better repel ants. So here's what happened next. Then on Monday, maybe Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday morning this week, I went out. It was like dawn, so I turned on the light and I looked down and I saw that the bowl was empty. This bowl was empty, okay? And I reached to pick it up and it came apart. You can see it is not perfectly round, but it is a clean cut. Okay, well, since telling you that, I was away on one weekend, and on another I was distracted by having a cold, maybe more of a cough than a cold, but it was distracting and I forgot to tell you. So now, I'm going to tell, thanks Paul Harvey, I'm going to tell you the rest of the story. So from that time, it was probably a week or so later, no more than 10 days I wouldn't imagine, when I took one bowl out with food in it, and I brought the dirty bowl in. It had been in the vinegar. I washed it. I washed it in the sink. I used water. I used soap and water. And because it was a bit sticky, I used some pressure. I may even have used a brush. But combining the soap and the water and my fingers and maybe a brush, all of that combined certainly amounted to putting at least some duress on the bowl. When it was clean, I stopped. I dried it. I set it down. I moved away past the next room, not maybe quite fully into the room after that, when I thought I heard something. It was louder than maybe the fridge door closing, but there was no one there. That shouldn't have happened. Softer than someone sneezing. It was a sound I did not recognize. You know, if my eyes are closed and you turn the key on your car, I'm going to recognize that you're trying to start your car. But if you were, say, applying mayonnaise to your cheeks, Well, if my eyes were closed, I might not recognize that. So this was like that. I didn't recognize it, but I returned to the kitchen, and there, mostly, where I left it, was the bowl. I said mostly because one little part had fallen to the floor. The rest of it, inexplicably, had fallen apart into more pieces than previous. Again, with round, very cleanly cut edges. Something like spontaneous combustion, you know? I have no explanation. All right, so at the beginning today, I showed you a little bit of the trailer for the 1949 film In the Good Old Summertime, which starred Judy Garland and Van Johnson. Now, if you haven't seen it, it's an old and often told story, and this movie has music throughout, but it's not a musical, but it is a musical adaptation of the movie The Shop Around the Corner. That was made in 1940, starring Jimmy Stewart. That movie was written by Miklos Laszlo, and it was based on the play that he wrote called Parfumere. Okay? Now, there's also a much more recent adaptation, but I'm not going to spoil it by naming that. So if you haven't seen any one of them, but you have seen another, you won't know that you're watching this movie with the plot, okay? I'm not going to spoil it. Anyway, as trailers often do, there are scenes from different parts of the movie. Again, not going to be a spoiler, but for this scene, obviously they needed a little girl. And obviously they found one. Do you recognize her? No? That's Liza Minnelli as a 3-year-old. That's Judy Garland's daughter, 3-year-old Liza Minnelli. Finally, I was in the store the other day, and there was this couple. I wasn't following them. They weren't following me, but we ran into each other a couple of times, different places in the store. I'm sure it's happened to you. I'm on the loyalty program with this store, so they send me emails about the specials of the week. So I knew of this one, and I saw the man. He's putting a case of beer in his cart. The special was a case of beer for $11.90, $12. Not a bad price. The guy obviously knew it. He was putting it in his cart. She was looking at something else. When she turned back, she saw that he was putting the beer in his cart. She said, "Hey, put that back. You know we can't afford that just now." It was $12, son. He said, "Put it back." She wasn't going to change her mind, so he put it back. Several minutes later, different aisle in the store, completely different place, I encountered them again. I'm looking for the shampoos, and she's putting something in her cart. She's just and he's looking at her, giving her a dirty look, and he says, "Hey, what the hell is that? What are you doing? That little jar cost $25. What is that?" She says, "Well, it's my beauty cream. It's what helps me look young and beautiful." And he said, "Well, that's what the beer does, and it costs half as much." All right, I got nothing that can follow that. So have a great Memorial Day, and I hope your upcoming week is the best one you've ever had.